Now, Star Wars The Rise of Skywalker is just 10 days away from its official release by Disney, Lucasfilm, J.J. Abrams, and even creator George Lucas. That is all set and ready to end the sequel trilogy and the Skywalker saga itself. This is Mike Zero. Make sure to subscribe if you're new to the channel for future content. Now, one thing about The Rise of Skywalker is that a lot of fans out there are very worried or apathetic towards this film or very excited about this movie. There's a lot of mixed feelings going into Episode 9 because a lot of fans at the end of the day are very much, looking back at what happened with The Last Jedi and the backlash it really received based on Rian Johnson's decisions and everything that Kathleen Kennedy approved. And now going into this film, a lot of people fear that we're going to get the same exact kind of backlash once again, the same exact kind of scenario with The Last Jedi. However, it doesn't end with The Rise of Skywalker based on all the changes and adjustments that they have made throughout the months of August, September, and October, is that the Disney CEO, Bob Iger, actually got a chance to go ahead and speak with the Wall Street Journal, and he actually had a very interesting interview to give about the future of the Star Wars franchise, Star Wars fans, and how they're going to approach the new Star Wars movies in the future, and how it lines directly with what we have been talking about of the changes of Episode 9 to cater to a general audience, which, by the way, I think is a terrible decision. So this is what Mr. Iger had to say. He states, "We are walking a very fine line." Mr. Iger said, he told him, "If we don't satisfy the most ardent fan, we'd be killed. The new Rise of Skywalker is still expected to be a blockbuster," the Wall Street Journal says, "and those alienated by The Last Jedi have turned to Mr. Abrams with hope. One executive who had worked with Mr. Abrams said the director is keeping longtime fans in mind, saying it is like an invisible fan is whispering in his ear during story meetings. Following the conclusion of the Skywalker trilogy, this month, Mr. Iger said he wants the next set of movies to be more accessible to common moviegoers, unburdened by decades of Star Wars memories, but he knows that will likely alienate some fans. He states, "You can't make everyone happy," he said. "If you're going to update a property," he said, "you might as well stick it in the museum and watch it get old." So that's what Mr. Iger had to say, and let's just digest that for a couple of seconds, alright? What he says at the very end there, how he says, if you're not going to update a property, he said, you might as well stick it in a museum and watch it get old. So, essentially what all of this translates to is that they don't want to be pretty much attached to the Star Wars fans that would be holding them back on their visions to create new Star Wars material that would cater to a general audience, to moviegoers that are not looking for anything specific. And that's exactly what Disney and Lucasfilm are looking to do for the future of the franchise. And let me just add in my 2 cents here as to why I believe that this is a terrible decision by Disney and Lucasfilm. Now, I did not expect this from Bob Iger. I expected this more so from Kathleen Kennedy, though I'm still not surprised because Bob Iger is the man who hired Kathleen Kennedy. He is the person who allowed Kathleen Kennedy to be a part of Lucasfilm after Disney bought out Lucasfilm, so that's just the thing. Bob Iger, if he really wanted to, he could have let Kathleen Kennedy go at any point in time. But the thing about this is that Mr. Iger, is basically saying that this is going to alienate quite a number of fans by focusing on new Star Wars material that's going to cater to a general audience. Now, let's talk about the general audience, right? The general audience is, of course, people who go ahead and see any movie that just comes out. You're not looking for anything really specific. You're not really necessarily a fan of that specific or particular franchise. You're just going to go ahead and go out and watch the movie or enjoy yourself at the movies. That's your common moviegoer, and that's exactly what Bob Iger wants to actually make the new movies cater to, is the general audience. The thing about this that I think is probably one of the worst decisions by Disney and Lucasfilm, and really makes me scratch my head wondering as to why in the world do they believe that they have to alienate the fans, and they have to be unburdened from Star Wars fans, and they have to focus on common moviegoers. It really seems like Disney is just trying to take over the franchise and do things their way without anybody kind of getting in their way, if that makes sense. It almost seems like that what they're trying to do is they're trying to detach themselves from the current Star Wars fans that have had problems with The Last Jedi. that currently have some issues with the Rise of Skywalker based on what we have been hearing and what we have seen and what we have actually seen in the teasers and the trailers, etc., etc. So, this movie, The Rise of Skywalker, like I say, is going to be a little baby step to Bob Iger's statement there. This movie is going to be a movie that will cater to the general audience. It's one of the main reasons as to why they made a lot of those decisions last minute. So, the last minute decisions that we actually talked about was actually how Bob Iger, Kathleen Kennedy, Disney, you name it, they deleted many scenes from making this movie and put new ones in throughout those many months of the reshoots and the rewrites, which, when I look at The Rise of Skywalker, I think that that is a bad decision. It really is. Because when you do that, that's basically placing yourself in a position in order to just shove the Star Wars fans away and put them else to a different part and then focus on common moviegoers, which isn't how you do things. And the thing that gets me is, why would Bob Iger be doing this with Star Wars, but he's not doing this with Marvel? That really does raise a couple of questions now, doesn't it? They're not doing this with Marvel. They're still focusing on the fans. They're still focusing on, the hardcore fans that love the comics and the graphic novels and everything related to the lore. But they're not doing that with Star Wars. The Star Wars franchise, they're focusing on alienating the fans. And like Bob Iger said right here, is that, you don't want to be, you want to be unburdened by, these Star Wars fans that are really much in tune with, the actual lore and everything specific that they want to see. Now, of course, some people may translate this to, well, Bob Iger's just, talking about the toxic fan base and they want to detach themselves from that. I don't think that this is the case. Basically, what this is that they're trying to update their property to create a reset for the Star Wars franchise, which does make sense because we actually talked about this a couple of weeks ago, is that Disney and Lucasfilm are looking to reset the franchise. What does that really mean? Well, that really means that they want to make the new Star Wars movies completely disconnected from any kind of existing lore. At least some of the movies. Now, we're not sure if this caters to every single Star Wars movie, or if it's going to be related to the new Star Wars trilogy. We're not quite sure about that. All we know is that Mr. Iger said that, you can't make everyone happy, and that it will alienate quite a number of fans. And if you're going to update a property, you might as well stick it in a museum and watch it get old, if you're not going to update a property. So, that's the problem. Is that in their belief, if they don't update their property to cater to a general audience, it's just going to get old and crumble and not really be any kind of value to them. And that, I think, is really, Disney's bubble right now. They don't really have an expansive way of thinking when it comes to the Star Wars franchise, or they don't really exactly know what Star Wars really is or what it really means to the fans, which I believe is the one reason as to why The Last Jedi was quite off, and why The Force Awakens played it safe, and why The Rise of Skywalker also seems like it's playing it safe based on all the changes that they made and all the deleted scenes that they swapped in and out. I think it's just a very big, bad decision by Disney and Lucasfilm that speaks volumes. It tells us that Disney and Lucasfilm want to do their own thing. They want to focus on their own Star Wars movies, unburdened by Star Wars fans, and it is going to alienate fans. Bob Iger, actually admitted to that. My only thing I can say about this is that, Disney, when you watch the fans turn away, it's nobody's fault but yours. It's actually the worst thing that you could do by alienating the fans and making Star Wars movies only for common moviegoers. I think that just does not line up at all in any way, shape, or form. That's just my take on things, and that's what Bob Iger had to say in the Wall Street Journal. It is a very interesting read. It is a very interesting statement, and it really does worry a lot of fans out there. A lot of fans are expressing their opinions on this. So anyways, guys, drop a comment below. Let me know what you think about all this in the comments, and if you guys did enjoy the content for today, do make sure to drop a thumbs up on this video to support the channel. I thank you all so very much for the kind support, and I'll catch you guys next time.